with independents, lowest rating from this group, the independents, that Trump has had in either one of his terms, okay? So we switch from that to issues. All right, so where is he say on Iran? 36% approval from the independents on Iran. They say that's low. That's his highest mark from independents on an individual issue. So the others are lower, 30% on immigration. All right, you're 29% on the economy. If you ask about the federal budget, the number comes in at just 19% approval. Again, independent numbers, this is coming from Gallup. Let's take it to our panel. We have Malik Abdul joining us today, the Republican strategist and radio talk show host, along with the SiriusXM host, Dean Obeidallah. All right, Malik, thoughts on that? The independent voters, particularly Epstein controversy hanging over the president as he travels overseas.
Well, of course, I'm supposed to get on here and say that polls don't matter. It's too early. It is, but this is something that the Trump administration has to be concerned about. Polls, now, I think we're at a point now where we're probably taking polls every few days, so I expect these numbers to actually change, but a lot of these polls are in response to the news cycle. And what have we been hearing in the news cycle? We've been hearing this consternation about the Epstein files. We've been hearing some of the concerns about what the administration is doing, how they're carrying out the ICE raids. I think a lot of these things are factoring, even though the economy itself, it's looking better. And as I always say, much like I said during the Biden administration, the top level numbers are much less important than how people feel. So how people feel this time next year is how they'll vote.
Now, I mentioned this just for context last hour, the economy, because the Journal had a poll on that. And it wasn't like it was a great number. It was like in the high 40s on the economy. But his numbers were going up on the economy. And again, this is just me saying this, but I think a lot of that's the stock market. People feel better when the stock market is at record highs, okay? But to Malik's points, just about everything else, including the economy, the president says, they say, underwater, you know, is that more people disapprove than approve. Now, on Epstein, Dean in particular, Libby talked about this, that his denial of being briefed about being in the files runs counter to her reporting and reporting of many others on that. And the other thing he was asked about on the tarmac was, you know, the effect this is having on Congress, getting stuff done. I mean, they left early. Here was that question. Listen.
Did you ask House Republican leaders to not vote on the resolution about?
No, I was never involved in that. I'm focused on making deals. I'm not focused on conspiracy theories that you are.
Okay, the issue with that, to me, Dean, is that people say, well, when's this going to go away? When can they move beyond it? Because they didn't have a vote, and you might say, well, I don't even know if they have the power to compel the president to release the files to Congress, but because they didn't have the vote, they're going to come back. Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna and these people, and they're going to talk about it in September. So to me, that means it's going to hang around for a while.
Of course it's going to hang around. And Donald Trump last night tweeting it's a hoax, then today saying, let's talk about anything else. I can't believe, Connell, you're talking about this. Donald Trump said, let's move on to Barack Hussein Obama and those kind of issues. It's not going anywhere. This is the right created this controversy.
That's why it's hanging around. To me, that's why it's hanging around.
Joined. So we're interested. And it reminds me of Hillary Clinton with the emails, like drip, 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 more news day after day. And the story organically continues. Donald Trump saying today, I was never briefed. That extends the story because your own reporting, Wall Street reporting, Journal reportings, he was briefed. So now we're going to have to fact check that. And it becomes, this is real news, investigative journalism. He can't escape it. I don't know how this is going to end, but he's not going to be able to make it go away by saying, look over there. It's just not going to work.
It hasn't been handled well. I think, Malik, he's done. It's probably an understatement, but just in many ways. I mean, it seems to me there would be many other ways you could have handled this as an administration, other than the way they went about it, including what Dean's talking about, the changing of the subject. Do you agree to this Obama stuff, that could backfire as well, or do you see it differently?
I think where the administration went wrong is very early on, and you have to understand this is very Trumpian. You just double down. You don't concede any ground on any issue. I think if the administration had said early on, hey, we expected things to be in there that they're not. Just come clean with it. There's nothing in the files. And I think it's important to note that if there was anything incriminating about Donald Trump, even if the Biden didn't direct it himself, I'm pretty sure that is something that would have been leaked.
That may be true, but instead they came out with that whole podcasters and started rolling it out. That's your point, is they should have come out early and said, hey, all these right-wing guys, many of whom are in government, right now.
Because he started talking about
right.
Obama and it being a hoax, and we were like, "Bro, wait, what are you talking about here?" It started wrong, and it's just been downhill. And Trump can't recover from it. I think ultimately he will, but he just can't recover from it right now.
But he could, Dean. Maybe you disagree, but I think he could articulate, if you look at his side of the story, a relatively strong argument. He tried to do that there about his first 6 months. Again, if he moved beyond this and stayed focused, say, "Hey, I had this agenda that," and you may disagree with his agenda because of ideology, but he said, "This is my agenda, and I passed it. I passed this big bill. Look at the stock market; it's at record highs. We're going to do these trade deals." I mean, he could, talk about Iran.
Sure.
We did all these things. I mean, he has arguments to make. Because that's why I say that. Boy, this is a mess up politically.
This is a huge scandal. I don't think people grasp how huge and consuming it is. You can't get away with it. And look, I passed the big billionaires bill, which is vastly unpopular. That's a great talking point to the right. But when people lose their Medicaid and their ACA subsidies, which they're going to lose next year, they're going to feel pain. So
why is it a huge scandal because to regular people? Because it's not a kitchen table issue like Medicaid or these other issues would be.
Look, when you bring sex and the president together, that's the scandal that everyone in the media dreams of. Everybody gets it. They want to know what's going on. And we keep getting more information about Donald Trump. And what did he know? And when did he know it about Jeffrey Epstein? And did he not alert the police when he was aware Jeffrey Epstein was having a relationship with children? That's a big question. I think that's a fair question. And we might find things in the file that paint a more robust picture of their relationship while the child sex ring was going on. And why didn't Trump report that evil to the police? That's what I think we might be getting to. And he doesn't want that out there.
All right. I said it last hour. I said it every hour almost. We cover it all. We'll talk about this. And we're going to talk about other things. Let me get you a couple of minutes on other things now. Go to the tablet. We have the Trump approval rating among independents kind of charted out there at 34.5%. So this is where we started, Malik. On issues, is it, I don't know, maybe it's trade deals this weekend, or maybe it's just getting me on this. How do you get that number up? How do you get closer to even with independent voters? Not that Trump's running again, but for those Republicans that'll be worried about this at the midterms, Malik.
I think that the Trump administration is going to have to talk about its economic message, the things that they're doing. I do believe that at some point, the Trump administration will also have to moderate what it's doing with the ICE raids. We don't know, about the Medicaid cuts. That won't happen by the time of the midterm. So I don't think it will be a factor then. But some of the other things that people are concerned about, I think that the Trump administration just has to be honest in addressing these things, because simply ignoring it, much like the Epstein scandal, it's not going away. You have to address it.
You agree with that, Dean? Because I think Malik might be right, because immigration had been a strong issue for the president. And if you just talk about like border encounters, say, well, that's a success. But the way these raids have been handled and presented recently and going beyond the original scope in many people's minds, is that hurting?
It's certainly hurting him, because Donald Trump's only focused on his base. He talks about, I have record approval rating. He means him on the GOP base. Democrats, he says he hates us, that we're traitors. And independents, he has disdain and contempt for. Independents see a camp in Florida where he's celebrating alligators in the Everglades that might eat immigrants. That's not the American dream. That's not what we're about as a country. It's very jarring. And you've got the corruption in front of us where our president's profiting. And you've got I think a budget, an economy that's not as good as people think. The CPI said inflation went up last month a little bit more than people expected. I think we're going to see more of that going forward. Can he right the ship? I don't know. I don't think he wants to, Connell. He just wants to be king of his base. That's always been who Donald Trump is.
Dean, thank you. Malik, thank you. We'll keep on all of these issues. So 1/4 past the hour. We have other issues to cover. DHS is monitoring.